Hey guys, Mr. Elation here. So I'm just gonna use this opportunity to make this video that I haven't been making for the past 6 weeks because I was intentionally holding on for this particular video topic until today, where number one, we get to see a Yao Guang rerun, which will offer players a little bit more perspective if they still want to invest in your Elation flagship. And number two, today is just a very interesting day, isn't it? Yeah, I don't know what day is today, but today is just a very interesting day. So I figured this is the perfect moment for us to get together as a community, as the rank 1 HSR guy at this point, to discuss my final thoughts on the Elation flagship, as well as the future of Plan Arcadia, or I guess the future of version 4. So with that out of the way, this is not scripted. I'm just purely talking about this from my experience playing this game for the past 3.5 years, right? Number one, I think the most important thing that we kind of want to address right now is this thing called Elation Civil War. This Elation Civil War has been happening almost without fail, by the way, every single day. Whenever we talk about Silver Wolf, whenever we talk about Evanescia, this shit never happens when we do Blade, Asheville, Sparksy, Blade, right? Back when Final was a thing, right? Remembrance Flagship a little bit, when people were like discussing the differences between Avenite as well as Casteris. Slightly a little bit between my personal agenda posting for Akron versus Fei Xiao, but it does remind me very similarly to this particular instance back in version 2. So if y'all are playing HSR for the first time, if you're watching this video, back in version 2, we had a extremely similar Elation Civil War, except that it's not Elation, it's Break. We had a super similar thing between Firefly mains and Reba mains back in my days, where we were basically all discussing, is Firefly better, is Reba better, right? Mid-fly, God-fly, mid-pa, skip-pa, who is putting for pa this, pa that. So the reason why I want to bring up this particular topic is essentially on my personal experience. It genuinely does not matter which one you think is gonna be better. The only thing that matters is which one Dawei thinks is gonna be better. Because back in our days, Firefly, Rebel, and Boothill, they had a very similar playing field. Right? Like, you couldn't definitively say Firefly was better than Reba in every single shape possible, every single endgame content, in every single game mode. Because there are some moments where Reba did clear better, and there are some moments where Firefly did clear. There are sometimes even Boothill clear better, like low cost zero cycles or whatever it's gonna be like. But fast forward a little bit to version 3.8, as well as the Firefly Nova Flare, I think it goes without saying that Firefly is definitively better as a break DPS compared to both Rabbi and Boothill, because not only does the Dahlia support gives Firefly a little bit more synergy to ensure 100% ultimate uptime, but also Firefly's personal Nova Flare, especially for players who put for E2 Firefly. Now, why is this important is basically my point, right? As a player, as a consumer, whatever they did with Firefly back then, it lowered my confidence in deciding which of the non-flagship or main push units I want to invest in for a same archetype. This is not to be confused with, for example, Casteris versus Phynon, because Casteris and Phynon, they play very differently. Right, one is Remembers with HP, one is Sustainless with Final on attack scaling. So because they're not competing with one another, essentially, right? If you are gonna be pulling for Final, you get Cerebra. If you're gonna be playing Casteris, you get Avenite. And then whether you want to get Cyrene for both, depends if you want to go for E0 or E2. And the Sustain is one's highest, one's DHPD. But for Final, you can even run a Sustainless. So those are very differing archetypes. And you could also make the same argument for Echo and Fei Xiao. One is follow-up, one is Nihility. One is debuff, one is a lot of ultimate damage. I mean, nowadays you could run like Azure and Blade in the same team with Echo and Fei Xiao, but that is not the point. But when the same archetype, right, they legit use the same, very similar mechanics of punchline as well as bangers, there are some differences as to, You could have more punchline generation, or you could have more banger generation. You could have more energy generation, or you could have more extra turns, right? So there are some like minute differences between the Elation archetype as a whole, but they still fundamentally follow the same concept, which is to play around the aha instance, right? Play around your punchlines and bangers, and play around how well can your Elation main DPS scale on the environment that is going to shield for Elation. I think it goes without saying that Elvish Arc Lotus, as well as a lot of the elites and endgame content, they have a lot of Elation shield mechanics, right? You get free punchlines, right? Free additional the damage reduction from the chicken, right? You have to do an aha instance, otherwise you can't dispel the chicken. So all these still comes under the same umbrella as the Elation archetype. But with all that being established, right? This is why I don't really have as much confidence for units that are not the main push of the same archetype. Because if you'd asked me back in the start of Break, I would have kind of just went like, you want to play whatever Break DPS, you just pull for whatever Break DPS, right? You want to play Firefly, you pull Firefly with Fugue Dahlia, right? If you want to play Reba, same thing. If you want to play Budo, same thing. But because of the preferential treatment, like it is a preferential treatment that Firefly got over the other two Break DPS, I'm just a little bit less confident as to whether or not Evanescia will also face a similar predicament compared to the Break DPSs. Because at the end of the day, one of the unit has 7 different traders with $2,000 billion high. Okay, I mean, I'm not sure what is the higher marketing budget. And the other unit has a 1 minute 52 second trader. Or was it 58 seconds? I don't know. And she like barely appeared. So it is like very, very clear from just a, not even from like meta, right? Not even like what the future holds. But as of right now, it is very clear as a consumer to me, they have invested more marketing and budgets into one particular unit over the other unit, despite them sharing the similar archetype, that is Elation. So in the future, if you would ask, do I have more faith in Silver Wolf having better teammates or Evanescia having better teammates, I would personally lean a little bit more towards Silver Wolf because they have a track record of doing a very similar thing with Firefly. If the Firefly thing didn't happen, I would have, okay, you want, play whatever Elation DPS you want, it doesn't matter, right? Because as of right now, E1 Evanescia is definitely stronger than E1 Silver Wolf. The endgame content we have right now is also definitely favored towards Evanescia compared to Silver Wolf. But at the same time, Silver Wolf's team is also lacking a key unit, that is the Elation sustain. Whereas Evanescia with Huan, it is like really, really synergistic. I mean, it could be even more synergistic, right? Evanescia could get a dedicated Sparksy that gives her bangers. Evanescia could also get a dedicated Huan that gives her both energy regeneration and bangers. But Silver Wolf, with the amount of budget she has, makes me as a consumer hold a little bit more confidence towards Silver Wolf's archetypes. So my bottom line for which unit is better, right? Is Silver Wolf better or is Evanescia better? As of right now, short term, in this version, the answer is Evanescia. But in the long term, we don't know who is better, but I am leaning more towards Silver Wolf purely because of essentially what happened to Break. Because I really like to compare Elation to the Break archetype, right? So take that as you will. At the end of it, it is just my personal opinion on which is better. You don't have to like follow and like at the end of the day, if you like Evanescia's kit, you should play with Evanescia. Alright? Like Boot Hill mains and Reba mains, if they hate Firefly, there's no reason to force them to play Firefly. But that is just something that players will probably be mindful of, especially if you are meta chasers. And that brings me to the second point of this video, right? Meta chasers, right? Meta chasers. I think one very, very, very interesting thing to look at is that we do have ourselves Yao Guang rerun right now. And I don't think this is by any coincidence that we have a Yao Guang rerun right before Himeko Nova. Because Yao Guang just had her banner literally 2 versions ago. Or rather 2 bands ago. 4.0 with Yao Guang. And within like 3 patches, we already have ourselves another return of Yao Guang, which I'm assuming it is basically a way of like the developers, right, that way, telling like, okay, you know what, players who have played or you guys want to play Elation flagship, you have seen what a Elation DPS is gonna be like with or without Yao Guang. And EMC, I mean, let's just be real, guys, EMC's kid is just like, alright, shout out to the Viet guys, so they want to do. But right after Yao Guang, I guess there's technically Sairi and Final for those who want to go for that, is gonna be Himeko Nova. And we know for a fact that Himeko Nova is not an Elation DPS, right? I don't know if she's gonna be a support, I don't know if she's gonna be a main DPS, but we know for a fact she is not gonna be an Elation unit. So for the entirety of version 4.4, there will be no Elation upgrades whatsoever, at least until 4.5. Which means no Elation sustain, no Elation sub DPS, no like an upgraded Hue. So whatever Elation team y'all see right now is gonna be this way from 4.3 to 4.4. Unless you wanna play like a Modern X Blade wheelchair sustainless and you slap that on over Hue, that could also work. But for general population, this is pretty much what Elation team is gonna be look like for the next 6+ weeks until 4.5. That being established, I feel like players who have decided that you guys want to play Elation, do be mindful of the fact that the unit after Yao Guang is a separate archetype. And you still need to remember to pull for the Elation sustain when the Elation sustain comes out. That means between the Yao Guang support and the Himeko DPS and the Elation sustain, you kind of have to pick. You cannot realistically get every single one of these units if you're lacking all of them, especially as a free-to-play. It kind of reminds me a little bit of like, how do I say this? It's like Remembrance mains back in version 3 and Warriors, and then they see Finon's animations, Finon's trailer, Finon's teams, Finon's whatever, right? Finon showcase. And then people might have been tempted to get Final. Because remember for Finon at 3.4, we didn't even know what Evanescia and Sairi was going to do for Remembrance. So Casper's back then only had higher scene. You had a higher scene, you had a tribute, you had an RMC. So you're probably thinking to yourself right now, okay, you know what? I have a Casper's, I have a higher scene, but Finon looks so fucking cool, bro. Right? He has the fucking meteor, he has the whatever skill is going to be, he has insane damage, right? Sustainless runs and everything. And then you get baited or tempted into pulling for a completely separate DPS that really has nothing to do with your Remembrance flagship. And then after Finon was when they introduced Evanescia and Sairi. So you might be feeling more tight on the wallets if you have went for Finon after you already decided to go for your Remembrance flagship. So I am feeling that this is gonna be a very similar predicament for the Elation mains. If you know you wanna play Elation and you lack Yao Guang, but you also see Himeko, right? If you do see Himeko, remember that you're not just pulling for Yao Guang, and you're just gonna be pulling for like maybe like a 1 cost easier as of Himeko. You still have another upgrade to go for. For example, your Elation sustain for Silverwolf. Is that gonna be Elation Sairi? At this point, nobody fucking knows, right? So keep your costs locked in as a free-to-play and real light spenders. If you're a whale or you're a collector, it doesn't matter, right? But for people who are trying to cost max, for free-to-plays especially, right? Keep your eyes on the goal and don't be too distracted by all of the different DPS in HSR, because at the end of the day, there's only going to be 3 teams. And if you already have been playing this game since day 1, you definitely have more than sufficient team comps to tackle your endgame content, right? So that is going to be for our meta chasers. One last thing I kind of want to point out before I talk about the future of, you know, whatever it's going to be. For our break comps back in Plan Arcadia, we did have 3 different break DPS, alright? We had a Firefly, we had a Boot Hill, and we had a Rare Barret. I don't know if this will also be for Elation, where we maybe, like, who knows, just get another Elation main DPS. Who knows? Because I really see Elation as an archetype that is more similar towards break compared to Remembrance. Because Remembrance, the trajectory is like, it's pretty straightforward. Alright, the whole team kind of just gels together very, very easily, and you don't like, you won't slot Aglaia into a fucking Evanescia Hyacinth team. You know what I'm saying? Whereas for Break and Elation, they have like a diversity of options because at the first place, you're not going to be running Evanescia and Silverwolf in the same team unless you get both your E2s or you want to just do like some fun challenge or whatever, sure. But generally, they are like in two different paths. So if they are going to be going with two different paths, and we know Himeko Nova is going to be 4x4, then what if Elation just has more alternatives to what is already being built upon right now? Because Yao Guang, whether you like her or don't like her, an additional aha instance is probably the closest thing to a must-have mechanic for any Elation DPS. Whether you are going to be someone that likes punchlines or you're going to be like someone that likes certified bangers, both or rather all Elation main DPS, they can definitely make use of this additional ultimate. And there's one very interesting thing, which is we tend to see EMC, or more specifically, all of the different MCs having their upgrades somewhere towards the end of the version, right? We have the HMC upgrade. I mean, nowadays, Break probably run HMC sustainers, but there was a HMC upgrade with Fuke, and then there was the Mimi upgrade with the bigger Mimi. So I do personally think they are probably gonna be making another EMC upgrade. And the reason why I'm so certain of this is because every single version also brings about a new path. So there's no way developers will just force you to run EMC with Evanescia for the rest of your lives. They will probably most likely make a premium EMC that kind of just does whatever EMC is going to be able to do, except better, so that they free up this EMC slot going forward into version 5, and then the whole cycle just process like repeats all itself over again. Alright, so because of these things, if you are going to be trying to think of, okay, I'm locked in for Elation, cost maxing in terms of units are something that you are probably going to need to consider more so than just having your vision narrowed down into whatever you see right now. Like, be a little bit more open to potential units that might just come into the team. Alright, so that is pretty much gonna be my last point, which wraps up our final thoughts on Elation. And at this point, it is gonna be where, okay, I'm just purely gonna be, there are no leaks, I don't look at leaks. I'm just gonna talk a little bit about my personal thoughts on the future of version 4. Alright, we know by now that version 4.4 is going to be Himeko as well as Rin Tohsaka and Gilgamesh. Gilgamesh is gonna be given for free. You are gonna get either him or an archer. If you're a day one player, that's E1 archer, right? As of this particular point, it does in fact feel that God Real is just God Real. This video is not sponsored, but the amount of variety that you are essentially able to have, as long as you have self-control, makes it relatively straightforward to manage the increasingly difficult endgame content we're gonna be getting, not to mention Starward mode. Because you don't really need to keep pulling for every single DPS when the DPS you're gonna be pulling for is gonna open up an entirely new set of characters to build a team for. I think the best analogy I can think of right now, right, is if you are a business owner, would you rather upgrade your current business, right? You hire more employees, right? You upgrade your furnitures, right? You give them like more menu, right? More food in your restaurant, or do you open up another business immediately? But you cannot afford more employees, you cannot get more furnitures, and you cannot get more marketing, whatever it's gonna be. Because every time you want to open another business as a business owner, you need to be prepared to invest the costs for each respective business. So this being established, if you are gonna be committing for the costs in Elation, in Remembrance, in Break, in Follow-Up, in Himeko, in Fate DPS, because technically Saber is like, she's a Fate DPS, right? You need to know that pulling for a DPS and HSR comes along with its additional costs going forward in the future, which you are just inevitably gonna have to spend to make them keep up with the environments when the shield environment goes away. I feel that it is unrealistic to expect a E0 DPS with no proper supports to perform the same level as their performance right now when they have their shield environments. Then in the future, when it all goes away, you are gonna be faced with two options. Do you pull for the new DPS with the brand new shield environment, you don't need any other supports? Or do you go back to the old DPS you pulled and you get their supports and sustains and whatever vertical cost is required to make them try and compete with the new DPS in the new shield environment? This is the same theory and concept for every single endgame rotation and every single version, right? Be it Elation, Remembrance Break, whatever it's going to be, it is always the same thing. And it will repeat itself every single time unless HSR introduces even more demand to create additional team content. We already have them for Star Mode, which is exceptional. You don't really need to keep going for so many different things. Because at the end of the day, look at what happened to Modern X Blade. Modern X Blade as a unit, it represents, in a very weird way, the greed of the players who pulls for multiple DPSs. Because Modern X Blade is essentially quote-unquote a wheelchair unit right now, which you can slot him into a lot of different DPS. You could. And he is definitely going to be able to improve your overall performance right now. But if you are a player that already decided for each of these teams, you want to commit for that, whether or not you get Modern X Blade for now, it might not impact you that much because you are already well invested into the other businesses that you opened in the first place, right? Modern X Blade really just feel that, oh my god, look at Modern X Blade bringing my E0 Akron to the fucking finish line by carrying her dead body alongside with Tribi and Hyacinth. Look at Blade carrying my Qingyuan, carrying my whatever, my Fei Xiao, right? If you're E0. But how long do you think is a wheelchair environment gonna last? Because for the next version, it is definitely not gonna be the same. If you're gonna be playing Elation, do you think we're ever gonna be having punchline generation enemies again? Except for sometimes, when God Real is God Real, they reintroduce these old enemies to make those team comps feel stronger again. But that is something that is purely depending if in the future it will repeat itself. So for example, right chat, when's the last time y'all fought Yanqing boss? Bro, I genuinely cannot remember the last time Yanqing boss appeared, bro. Like, bro just ceased to exist, and his mechanic way back then is the little sword thing. Okay, stop saying currency war and DU, it doesn't count. But like for endgame content, for content that you kind of have to clear within a certain amount of cycles, you kind of just don't see bro anymore. Alright, when is the last time y'all saw Olumatron, guys? Do you guys remember the OG Olumatron that had toughness lock? And when he summoned the goldfish, isn't it really interesting how Olumatron just never appeared? On the very same sort of rotation when Firefly got a Noah Flare and Dahlia. I mean, I think by now, right, if they were to reintroduce Olumatron, Firefly with Dahlia can probably just brute force, but it would definitely still not be as comfortable, right? So with every single version, they will always introduce all these new enemies and remove the enemies that will make those DPS look bad. So in the future, if Himeko is gonna be someone that opens up a brand new endgame environment, whatever Himeko is gonna do, right? Is she a main DPS? Is she gonna make Herda great again? Right? Maybe she's a Herda support. Who knows, bro? Right? Who knows? But with these brand new things, I do believe that other things that were shield will have to be removed. So just expect that your performances that you see right now will not be as strong, especially if you choose to skip on their costs and keep going for the DPS, right? So with that, I am gonna wrap up this video. I think it is very interesting with one last thing. That is, I said it at the start of the stream, my personal free-to-play pulling plans going forward in version 4. So I have shown this right here. This is currently my free-to-play's most invested team. That is Remembrance Flagship. Pretend QQ is my E2 casters. This team is pretty much done, except that I heard that the brand new Anomaly Arbitration King is really fucking difficult for Remembrance Flagship. So we'll just see how that is going to be going. Fantastic. My second team, I am not sure if Rin Tohsaka is going to be a Archer support. But if she is going to be an Archer support, then we are going to be logging in to our E2 Archer because we are not going to be building Gilgamesh. I did not pull for Saber. I'm not sure if Gilgamesh is going to be like, I don't need another DPS, right? So we are going to be going for the E2 Archer, followed by our E0 Sparkle. If Rin is going to support, we'll get ourselves one cost Rin. Then we are missing that one last guy because DHPT is pretty much gonna be the last remaining sustain, right? And at this big 2-6, I desperately need a version 4 sustain for my third team with Star Mode. I'm not sure if you guys have tried Gallagher in 2026. Try running Gallagher in Anomaly Arbitration right now, bro. And let me know how that is going to be going for y'all for most general player base. But from my account, on my free-to-play, I am definitely going to be skipping Blade. I am having the potential of either E0 My Day with a Sunday, right? Because my free-to-play account does in fact have a Sunday that has not seen daylight for like 10,000 years, with our E1 Trippy, which was previously in our Archer team. So I think this team is gonna be one of the most likely third team I can make. It is definitely nowhere near as strong as my Team 1 and Team 2, but they don't have to be as strong. They just need to be strong enough to be wheelchaired across to the finish line for Star Mode. So that is gonna be one of my Team 3 options. Or I kill these two buggles and I pray to every single night that Dawei comes up with a D-Herta upgrade for D-Herta and Evanescia. Because as of this moment, my D-Herta Evanescia team, they technically do function really well with E1 Trippy. Because E1 Trippy originally, her additional targets hit as well as the true damage converts extremely nicely for D-Herta, especially in pure fusion. But in this day and age, especially on E0, Azure, E0, Azure, this team is gonna be looking a little bit cold. So if a version 5 release someone like Blade for D-Herta, that will be an instant 1-cost upgrade. And notice how I really did not invest in a lot of different teams, because this has been the exact same team I used since the start of version 3.0 with my free-to-play account. Alright, I only invested 2 costs in Herta and Evanescia. I did not over-invest too many different things. So if a version 5 comes out with, like, let's just say an upgraded Evanescia, it is what it is. Because he has done his job for me as a free-to-play, because D-Herta was my first DPS before Casters. And I still have well over, I think at this point, close to 500 limited pools on my free-to-play account. So that would pretty much be my team building pooling compositions on how I want to cost max my account. My biggest upgrade, Rin, and the version 4 sustain. I am not sure if that plan might change if I need a better version 4 DPS, but I try to avoid this. Because like I mentioned, if I do pull for a brand new version 4 DPS, it means all these costs that I have right here is not going to be doing too good. Except there's one thing that I kind of just thought of. Sunday joined the Astro Express, didn't he? With that, we're gonna end off this video on my thoughts on Elation as well as version 4. Let me know what you guys think in the thoughts and comments down below. Again, these are just purely my subjective opinions. Feel free to open up for discussion. Word of the day is gonna be Astro Express. Join Discord, join to the use code POKE for 10% off gamers up. All the best for your gacha pools, and I'll see you guys next time. Thank you.